to the power of one. Today, I am going to have a very interesting conversation with a gentleman by the name of Guy who works for the Defenders Association. Most of you know me as working with victims and co-homicide survivors, but there are people who contact me for my help within the community, and they need help from the Defenders Association. Please understand, I never judge. I just try to help those in need. And every single time that I've contacted Guy, he has jumped into action to be able to help those in need. Welcome to the show, Guy.
Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on today.
You're welcome. I am so excited to have this conversation because this is not something that I know too much about or in my area of expertise. So I want to jump right in with these questions. What is the Defenders Association of Philadelphia?
Thank you for that question. And I do want to just make it known that, yes, while you may not have, the strongest command of what happens over here at the Defender Association or the ways that we advocate for the folks that we represent, our work overlaps in a lot of different areas. So you're right. Let's jump right into what the Defender Association of Philadelphia is. So first, we are a criminal defense law firm. We're the largest criminal defense law firm in the city of Philadelphia. We're the largest criminal defense law firm in the state of Pennsylvania. The Defender Association is the fourth largest, rather, criminal defense law firm in the country. We were formed in 1934 with the intent to provide zealous and effective representation for indigenous criminal defendants facing charges. We follow a set of core values, and we're guided by our mission statement. And our core values are client-centered, dignity and humanity, collaborative and holistic advocacy, professionalism, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we also have a mission that guides our advocacy. And that mission simply states that the Defender Association of Philadelphia provides high quality, client-centered legal representation, connection to social services, and reentry support to adults and juveniles in Philadelphia, engaging in advocacy and community collaboration to improve the lives of vulnerable populations, protect the Constitution, and ensure fair and equitable justice system. Attorneys, social service workers, advocates, mitigation specialists, investigators, paralegals, community outreach professionals, and administrative professionals are just a few of the professions that advocate for the folks that the Defender Association represents.
So it's more than just legal services. It's more than just going to court to represent someone.
Absolutely. It's so much more than just going to court representing folks. If you recall, part of our mission statement is client-centered, holistic approach. So when we talk about client-centered, we want to ensure that our clients have a name and they're not just a number. So in that spirit and in that vein, we absolutely do our very best to provide our services and connect our clients to all kinds of services across the state, across the city, and especially what our office offers to them.
So, you know, I work with victims and co-homicide survivors, and victims have rights. Co-homicide survivors have rights. Explain and correct my language if I'm incorrect. Do we call them offenders? Do we call them defenders? Do we call them those accused? They have rights also. So first, correct my language. And this is before we even get to court, and what the rights are.
Well, they are defendants. They are defendants, and they do have rights. They actually have rights stated in our U.S. and state constitutions. They have, first, the right to a fair trial. They also have a right to effective counsel. Our young people in the state of Pennsylvania have a right to a quality education. The list goes on and on. They have the right to be presumed innocent. They have the right to a trial by jury. The population is very similar, or in many cases the same, as the population of folks who are survivors of crimes. Most offenders have been victims or survivors of crime at some point. So our populations are very similar, and in a lot of cases, they are the same.
Does it vary from children to adults?
It varies slightly from children to adults. So we represent adults in the criminal justice system. We represent young people who our court system refers to as juveniles, but language has meaning. So we refer to them as young people. And our young people are represented by the Defender Association. Up to 75% of the young people in the Philadelphia jurisdiction are represented by the Defender Association of Philadelphia. More than 70% of all adults in the city of Philadelphia are represented by the Defender Association when they face charges in the criminal justice system. We also represent young people in matters of dependency. And also civil matters of mental and behavioral health issues. So yes, we do represent them in at times a different capacity than we do adults, because like frankly, the adults aren't. They don't find themselves facing any similar issues to young people when it comes to dependency. Adults aren't dependents. So, we do have specialized practice areas when it comes to our youth and our young people. And we do ensure that we are appropriate and effective when we represent those young people.
Do you find that people who are victimized are upset with people who are representing those who were the offenders?
Probably in some very rare cases, but not all the time. I
Mhm,
think in some cases where we may see some egregious crime committed, some heinous crime committed against one of our citizens, the entire community stands with those folks. We
mhm.
stand with those folks. When it comes to those matters, absolutely. The community may find themselves upset with the Defender Association, but we circle back to part of the conversation that we had in the very beginning. Those folks have a right to effective counsel. So while some members of our community may be upset, our Constitution provides for effective counsel for those persons who are accused of committing crimes in any jurisdiction. So, but for the most part, again, those populations overlap so much that it's a challenge for community members to actually take a position that's that doesn't necessarily align with the role of what the defender does in the services that we provide, because at some point we've likely provided services for a good bit of those folks. The number of Black folks affected and impacted by the criminal justice system is so high
Mhm.
that we'd be remiss to not include both populations when we talk about defender clients.
Speak about restorative justice, at its best. So I do know, and and like you just said, when a crime is committed, it can not only affect that one person, whether it's a victimization or a homicide, it affects the community as a whole. What does the Defenders Association do to ensure that this individual receives the services that they need? Whatever that may be, from beginning, middle to end, so they do not do this to another community member.
So yes, we work with a lot of credible community-based organizations that actually engage in restorative justice as hub participants, and they work, in collaboration with different agencies across the city, the DA's office, the police department, credible community-based organizations, and some of the things that we do to work with folks when they're either returning home or they find themselves facing charges. Again, our social services unit and our social service professionals, they provide referrals to employment, to education, folks so they can get their GEDs. They work in criminal justice reform. We have a police accountability unit to ensure fairness. There's also the child representation that we talked about before, the adult representation, mental and behavioral health counseling, substance abuse counseling, homelessness, support for the unhoused populations of our city, domestic abuse support, disability
Mhm.
support, reintegration, reentry support, parenting, recovery, housing, just a number. Again, it's a holistic approach to advocacy for the folks that we represent. And again, these aren't just the folks that we represent. You and I have worked together closely over the
Yeah.
past 4 or 5 years, and we both know that the populations do overlap. So while we're providing these services for folks
Mhm.
that the defender represents, we're also providing these services for the folks that you work with.
Mhm. Yeah, that is true. I'm just amazed because sometimes we, and I'm speaking about myself, just have this one track mind. And I remember speaking to Dr. Stephanie Mayweather, and she said, "I want to put you in contact with this gentleman by the name of Guy." I said, "Okay, well, where does Guy work?" And she was like, "The Defenders Association." I said, "I don't need that number." And I call you all the time, and every time I call, you're like, "Okay, I can help, and I can do this." So it is good, and it's so important that we open our minds and just not become so focused on one thing, because I've learned in being in victim services that my help is not always going to come from another victim based agency. So that's awesome. Speak about expungement. What does that word mean, and how does it help others?
I will. First, I want to just take a trip down memory lane. You mentioned Stephanie Mayweather. Stephanie Mayweather is an amazing person. She was actually one of
Yes.
my undergrad professors. The course that I took of hers was victimology. And prior to graduating from Temple University, again, she was my professor. I had no idea I would find myself on the path that I am now. And I owe
Um,
her a debt, gratitude for putting me on a path to, the career road that I'm on right now. So I just wanted to acknowledge Stephanie Mayweather. She is an amazing person.
And
So
she said, "You are amazing." And that's why because she knows that I'm like, "Listen, I need a resource." And I would never give someone, "Listen, you're going to call this 1-800 number, you're going to press 2, then press 5, and then press 6, and then you're going to get a voicemail." But people know how I work. And
right.
she said, "No, you got to call Guy if you need help in this area." She said, he will help you. She said, "He's amazing." So she gave you a shout out also.
Thank you. I got to call her after I'm done and to tell her how much I appreciate her. So we're going to talk a little bit about expungements, and you asked a couple different questions about expungements. What does it mean, and who does it help? So when we talk about expungements, what expungements means to so many people in our community is, if you could really define expungement and just boil it down to like maybe 2 words, those 2 words would be second chances.
Mm,
So expungements create opportunities for folks. It creates second chances. And some of the second chances that these folks get are second chances at education, second chances at
mm,
housing, second chances at social services, second chances at employment. When folks don't have an expungement and they do have a record, whether it's just an arrest record, items that matters that they've been arrested for but never convicted of, or they have convictions, whatever the case is, they they find themselves marginalized. They find themselves set aside and left out of so many opportunities. Those opportunities become blocked for them. With a criminal record, you're unable to enjoy public housing. Right, you're
mhm,
unable to enjoy so many different social services. Employment applications have ensured that folks with criminal backgrounds and criminal records do not have access to employment. Social services, there's so many social services that, if you have a criminal record, you're not eligible to receive. So expungements in a nutshell, and just when you boil it down, if you could call it by another name, you could call it a second chance.
okay. Okay. So the criminal justice center system, the criminal justice system as a whole can be it can be a very horrible ordeal for many, many people. Again, me going off of victims and co-homicide survivors, there's many times where I'm sitting in court and my heart is breaking for this victim or for this family. Do you see that on the other side as far as defendants and speak about those poor individuals that are sitting in jail just because they can't make bail. And it could be something for a simple case.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about cash bail. Cash bail criminalizes poverty, period. That's what cash bail does. It's the remnants of our peonage system from going back into the 1800s and early 20th century. So, cash bail, again, it criminalizes poverty and it creates a two-tiered system of justice by which those with money for release can return to their communities while those without money are forced to remain incarcerated while they await trial. Cash bail perpetuates the stark racial disparities in pretrial outcomes. So many times, folks who are sitting behind bars for no reason other than they are unable to come up with whatever this amount of money for bail is, they lose their jobs, they lose their homes. They may have, elderly folks that they care for. Those folks no longer have a caregiver. They have children who now don't have a parent at home. They may be members of a faith-based community that relies on them for a number of reasons, but now they're no longer a part of that community in person because now they're taken away from the community. They may have, play a role in education, in someone's school, in their child's education, but they're removed from this. They may be, one of the most important providers for their family, but they can no longer provide. And we talked a little bit earlier in the interview about the rights of the accused. All of these folks have the presumption of innocence on their side. These are people who are presumed innocent. However, because they now don't have the ability to, number one, participate in their defense as someone would who's outside of prison or outside of, pretrial detention. A lot of times they're offered deals that, just for the sake of coming home, folks sitting in pretrial detention for 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, they've already lost their job. They've already lost their mode of transportation. They may have lost loved ones. They lost the ability to ensure that their child is properly taken care of. A number of different things. These people plead guilty to crimes that they may or may not have committed. So there's an impact there, a negative impact. And again, it doesn't just impact the person who's being held pretrial. However, it has an impact on that whole group, that whole society, that whole community that surrounds that person. And again, that's why we take this client-centered, holistic approach to advocacy for the folks that we represent.
Now, sometimes we pay for our ignorance. That could be anything. That could be me going to a mechanic and not know exactly what's wrong with my car and they charge me up. I don't know. Those people who are sitting in prison, are they given the opportunity to call the Defenders Association? Are they put in contact with you? Or do they, have to take this deal because they don't know their rights?
So going back to the introduction that I made about the Defender Association, every attorney here at the Defender Association is a licensed practicing attorney. They're licensed in the state of Pennsylvania. So they are in touch with their attorney from the moment that they're arraigned, right? So they do have an attorney here at the Defender Association. We represent 70% of those folks who face charges as adults in the city of Philadelphia. And yes, they do. They're always in contact with their attorney, and their attorney relays whatever those offers are from the DA's office. The defender doesn't really have a lot of say in what that offer looks like. We present it to our client, and our client makes that final decision of whether or not they will accept a plea bargain. So we walk, through every step of the process, the defender is there with them, advising them of what's being offered to them, what's on the table, and what their options are. And, the defender can't make those decisions for our clients. Our clients make that decision.
And they do say that in court. Did anyone, and I might have it wrong, somebody won't say it, but yes, I agree with what you're saying. We know that that's wrong. Does the Defenders Association fight for policy change? Is the Defenders Association in Harrisburg, in Washington, saying this is not right? How can we change this?
So yes, the Defender does work on policy, and we do fight for change. One of those examples of policy change is the driving equality bill. You may be familiar with it. Councilmember Isaiah Thomas worked with the Defender Association. Well, the Defender Association worked with Isaiah Thomas in providing him with, the data that supported that legislation. He introduced that into the House. It was passed, and that's a bill that's been on the books now for 3 years. It's a law that's been on the books now for 3 years, and that's just one example of how our office actually works on policy. It happens all the time. The public isn't always aware of where data comes from,
Mhm,
where information
mhm.
comes from, or how it's provided to, our policymakers and our lawmakers. But a lot of times it comes from the Defender Association, and we do push for policy change. The role that I have in the Defender Association as Director of Youth Partnerships and Community Outreach is actually housed in our policy department. A lot of our outreach and community engagement is driven by the data that our policy unit provides to us. So we absolutely work to change policy all the time and create policy and use, all the information that's available to us to ensure that, our objectives when it comes to policy are the most robust that they can be.
Police accountability, touchy subject often. And we know, let's be honest and real, that within the African American communities, they don't always trust law enforcement. I work with some great homicide detectives, detectives within the police district, and the officers and the victim assistance officers, the captains, all of them that I work with in Philly and still have a great relationship with. I just take my hat off to them and the great work that they're doing. But there are times when things happen and it's not ethical, it's not legal. Does the Defenders Association see a lot of that? And how do you combat the illegal behavior with law enforcement?
So to answer your question, yes, the Defender Association sees it. We see it all the time. We may see it more than any one member of the public sees it because we see it most of the times when it happens with our defendants, and they report it to us. We see it so much that our office actually houses a police accountability unit. Our police accountability unit was founded in 2016. And it's instrumental in our efforts to provide high quality client centered legal representation. The Police Accountability Unit staff works to improve outcomes for defender clients, aid trial attorneys in their representation of clients with police related issues, and effectuate policy and legal changes related to systemic police misconduct. So we're always on the lookout for those issues that impact our clients when it comes to the bad behavior of law enforcement officers. And the word bad behavior clearly doesn't touch on or carry the amount of weight that police misconduct does. In so many cases, it's so egregious that community members, you've seen protests over the past few years, probably the largest global protest during the George
Right.
Floyd trial, once that happened. So we are definitely in tune with police misconduct. Again, we have an entire unit dedicated to ensuring that misconduct is addressed.
How can people get in touch with the Defenders Association, and when should they get in touch with you? Not being apprehended because they'll automatically be in touch with you, but when should people reach out to you, and how can they reach out to the Defenders Association?
So I personally, because I work in community outreach, I believe that the community should reach out to us early and often before an issue hits you. Because one thing that, when I run one of our programs, our junior defender program, I tell, those students, clearly, listen, there's a person out here around you that intends to do you harm. And then I flip it and I say, you know what? you could be the person out here that's intending to do someone else harm. So we want to make sure that, we're always in line with what the community is asking for, what the community wants. And I believe that those folks should reach out to us as often as possible. And they can reach us, number one, walk in. A person who we represent can always walk into our office and ask to speak with an attorney, with the attorney that's representing them. Our office is at the Defender Association of Philadelphia, 1441 Sansom Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19102. Again, that's 1441 Sansom Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19102. Our telephone number here is 215-568-3190. That's 215-568-3190. We can be reached by email at contact@philadefender.org. That's CONTACT at PHILADEFENDER.org. Contact@philadefender.org. You can reach us on our website, philadefender.org. That's philadefender.org. We're also on Instagram and TikTok at Philly Defenders. Again, that's Instagram and TikTok at Philly Defenders. Facebook, you can reach us, Defender Association of Philadelphia. Again, Facebook is Defender Association of Philadelphia. X, formerly known as Twitter, at Philly Defenders. And one of our newest social media presences is our Junior Defenders. And our Junior Defenders now have they have a presence on social media platforms, Instagram and TikTok. And you can catch our Junior Defenders at Philly Junior Defenders. At Philly Junior Defenders, all one word, all spelled out. So yeah, we're around. You can always reach us. You can give us a call. You can holler at us. If you got a question about any of our community outreach initiatives or engagements, you can feel free to holler at Guy Lang, that's me, or Tamira McCurdy, who's our community outreach coordinator. Again, I'm Guy Lang, and our community outreach coordinator is Tamira McCurdy. And we're always around, so please reach out to us.
One more quick question. Is it a Defenders Association in every city or county, should I say?
So it depends on jurisdiction. The Defender Association of Philadelphia, our jurisdiction is the city and county of Philadelphia, which is, the boundaries of Philadelphia. Every county in Pennsylvania has its own defender office. It's different across the nation. It could be, a statewide defender. It could be separated in any number of ways. Here in Pennsylvania, we have, I want to say 60 some counties or whatever, but each county has its own defender association, and we are the Defender Association for Philadelphia.
Guy, I want to thank you so much, and you need to tell your boss you did all of your homework, because I'm telling you are on point. Okay. You
No,
did an amazing job. Thank you so much for joining me today.
thank you for having me. We appreciate you. The Defender Association is always thankful for opportunities to serve and also opportunities to share what it is that we do here at the office and drive those folks here to our office who may require our support or our services. We are here. So thank you so much. I appreciate the time and the opportunity.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you learned a lot, because I did. Don't always look at the title, but look at the person who stands before you who's genuine. Look at the person who stands before you and wants to help you. And I can assure you that Guy is that person. Thank you so much for joining me today. Peace and love.